In today's video, we're going to talk about what Bob has been doing to work on his walking and how he stays consistent with it, and it has to do with lasers.
Hi, I'm Brad.
And I'm Mike, and behind the scenes we have Bob, and together we're the most famous physical therapy team on the internet.
Well, in our opinion, of course.
So today we are talking about Bob and his condition, ataxia. Brad, do you care to elaborate on this?
Well, as many of our loyal viewers know, Bob was diagnosed with ataxia a few years ago, and they're familiar with how it has affected his coordination, his balance, walking, and speech.
So Bob started using low-level laser therapy a few months ago, and he actually did a test. So he used it for 40 days, felt like he didn't notice a difference. So he stopped using it for 5 days. In those 5 days, he went from walking 1 mile 2 times a day using his walker to barely being able to walk at all. He decided maybe I should start doing this laser treatment again, started it up again, and his walking returned to normal. So he found this to be very important to him.
Yeah, that's actually impressive to see that.
So what we decided to do is bring in an expert on this subject. His name is Dr. Trevor Berry. He is a chiropractic neurologist who has over 3,000 hours of research and studying looking into low-level laser therapy. And before we bring him and Bob into this video, we would like to mention that this low-level laser therapy device comes from Erconia. So you can go to erconia.com to find out more about that. And we will also link it down below.
That's right. You're going to find everything you need to know about this product and how it works. And naturally, we have Bob with his testimonial.
So in this video, Bob's going to show and talk about exactly how he uses it. Dr. Berry will explain it a little more in depth. And then they're actually going to show how he uses it in conjunction with exercise.
There you go.
Here, don't do this at home, kids. This is Trevor Berry here. This is not Erconia. But what am I doing? Would I ever do this with a class 3 or class 4 laser? No, absolutely not. I'm not saying to do this with any light device because it is one of the contraindications. But we're doing more and more studies with macular degeneration and retinal repair and stuff like that. So I'm only doing this to illustrate how safe a class 2 laser is, relatively speaking. Again, this is me talking. I'm not saying that everyone to go out and start shining lights in their eyes. Definitely don't do that. But this is how safe it is. So, that's I'll give that back to you and
for 5 minutes, I do frontal lobe, and I do this.
So what I love about that is that when you stack those modalities to activate those specific, you get that laser energy in there and all the mitochondrial output and the growth factors, and it even draws the stem cells to that target tissue, things like that. So when you're lasering and then you do exercises neurologically, like those cortical spinal pathways, I love that. That's a brilliant concept of stacking modalities.
I go cerebellum with that.
The stand, yep.
Yeah, for 5 minutes, and I do isometric. Isometric.
Beautiful. So isometric, any muscle movement technically, but I love the isometrics. Creates that surround.
I can do feet.
Beautiful. I love that. So as lasering the cerebellum and then doing that, isometrics are a really good way for shunt stability, surround inhibition stuff, things like that. So I love that. That's a great concept.
Then I do vestibular. I have that one. I see what I do with that. I say A, B, C.
Oh, now you're getting into.
I go back and forth, and up and down.
Yeah, I love that. The fact that you're doing gait stabilization stuff, this is so profound because if you look at the number one preventable cause of death in the elderly, it's falls. And one of the big areas on that, obviously the cerebellum controlling, when you look at ataxias and muscle coordination and stuff. But the fastest reflex of the human body is our ability for our eyes to lock on a target and move that around that target. And so what you just did there with what we call like no gaze stabilization exercises, that's such a great concept because it's a very underutilized thing in healthcare, in physical therapy, chiropractic, all these modalities. What do you do when say a good example is for those that do yoga, know what I'm talking about. When you're trying to do a tree pose or something with balance, if you look at a target and keep your eyes locked on that target, that's going to give you much better balance because the eyes are directly linked to your balance, your vestibular system, as you alluded to. So just doing exercises like this is actually a very, very powerful tool. And again, when you stack the laser on there, those kind of things are, I think, should be more utilized in all kinds of healthcare programs for physical therapy, OT, chiropractic, because it also stabilizes the midline. I give a big shout out to one of my mentors, Dr. Ted Carrick, because he's kind of like the forefather of doing a lot of the eye exercises and things like that, and gaze stabilization stuff, and even for postural stuff. Say you're losing your curvature, you're blowing out a disc because of that, things like that. Doing gaze stabilization stuff can be a very powerful midline activation tool because it's reflex based. It's not based on putting a 45-pound plate on your head, doing extensions. That's not how you stabilize the deep intrinsic spinal muscles. And so because those areas are so metabolic, like the cerebellum is the most metabolically active tissue, one of the most metabolically active tissues of the body. It has over half the neurons of your entire nervous system. So if you can get that laser energy into that while you do, like you were doing, your isometrics, your complex cerebellar movement stuff, and all the brainstem stuff for balance, man, you have got a great 1-2 punch for fall prevention and midline stabilization strategies.
I do a vestibular and the throat.
Yep.
I say a couple prayers.
I like that.
And then I do a stomach for 2 minutes.
Yep.
And feet.
Yeah, and so again, that brain gut axis we were talking about, the feet thing, as far as proprioceptive feedback, the muscles and the big nerves that tell you where you are in space, why not give those the energy as well too? I mean, I talk a lot about brain activation and upregulation, but you're right. You want to, you can blanket the whole body and give the energy to the nerves and muscles that go down, because those are very powerful. Obviously, your eyes are a big strategy for balance and walking and things like that, but obviously your foot and ankle feedback that's paramount too. And a good example is look at the rates of diabetes. And things like how lasers can help with like peripheral neuropathy but any orthopedic, like we have a FDA clearance, Dr. Kerry Zhang's right down the road from me. He's the one that did the plantar fasciitis study with laser, just as a set it and forget it. It was 6 treatments, knocking plantar fasciitis out of the park.
Wow.
And the other neat thing about that was that they did advanced imaging studies and not only did it promote new soft tissue growth, connective tissue and things like that, lasers promote vascular endothelial growth factor, so new blood vessel formation to tissues. And they actually have demonstrated that in multiple studies. Like you'll hear terms like VEGF. So I love that you either what I call swim downstream, activate the brain and then go all the way down the body, or you can swim upstream. You can start by lasering the distal tissues and work your way up into the central nervous system as well.
Any suggestions?
Anyway, suggestions?
Yeah.
Well, you and I had a great phone call, a Zoom meeting there, and so you covered the main thing. So I like that you did, the brain stuff where you upregulated frontal lobe while you activated doing cortical spinal stuff, cerebellar while you do other muscle-based activation, brain gut. The only other thing that, well, I shouldn't say the only other thing, but one of the things you can always consider is, spinal cord nerve root based upregulation. Say I am working with a lower extremity condition like peripheral neuropathy, or what, it doesn't have to be lower extremity, but a neuropathy or something like that. I'll do all the parts of the brain. I'll do frontal, parietal, cerebellar, brainstem stuff like you were talking about, vagal stem, nerve root, spinal cord, and distal tissue. So the more you can like just kind of cover all the downstream nerve pathways. But for example, I was working with a couple dementia patients this week that flew in to see me, and we were doing more temporal lobe stuff. And then we would stack that with memory recall and smells and other ways to bring up that system. But, or say it's a sensory distribution issue, maybe you're lasering the parietal lobe while you do vibration. So that might be something for your, with balance, is maybe you're working on a vibe plate or an RX or, something like that. And then you laser the parietal lobe at the same time that you're doing sensory modalities as well too. So that might be another add-on if we're not doing as much, because it's always, the motor output is based on what the sensory input. That's why physical therapists and chiropractic and whatnot it's such an important integral part of healthcare, is we're receptor-driven systems. What goes in dictates what comes back out. So if we can optimize the sensory system by getting good laser and sensory modalities and physical therapy and chiropractic adjustments and things like that, and activate the brain pathway or the brain areas that are involved in that, that's just another great idea or concept that's probably a little bit underutilized. Nice. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and get that under that foot. And then, perfect. So Bob, what I'm going to have you do is another really good, I love this exercise right here, because I'm going to have Bob sit up nice and tall, and I'm going to do a glute activation. So now, typically, and I'll just go ahead and bring the stand out. So Bob, what I'm going to have you do is a kind of a neat variation of what we're doing. So go ahead and give me that nice posture. Give me a glute isometric, so glute clamshell. I'm going to give you a target to look at and hold an isometric on the clamshell, and then do your no gaze stabilization exercise while you look at that and do the isometric.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I trace it with my head.
Okay, and what we'll do on this one first is just straight horizontal. So straight and slower, even slower and smaller amplitude. And even smaller amplitude, and slower. There you go. So even maybe a little bit more. So it's going to be about here for that. Okay, so go ahead and try that. And you don't even have to do that. That reflex fatigue's pretty quick, so that's good right there. Now, the eyes, you don't want them coming off the target. That's why you want to go slow and less amplitude, because if you start like that, the eyes come off the target and you lose the effectiveness of that exercise. So you can relax the legs for a second. So we do the isometric for depending on the band and the strength of the patient and stamina. Ideally, you want to get up to a minute.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good one there, hey? Yeah. But another low back pain being so prevalent and common. The two biggest things that I can do for low back pain are the midline and vestibulospinal stuff. So this is going to activate the ocular motor system. So the pathway that goes up to the eyes is the same pathway that drives your deep postural muscles. It's called the vestibulospinal system. Don't worry about these technical terms. Going up to the eyes is called the medial longitudinal fasciculus. Don't try and repeat those words at home, kids. So as that pathway goes down to your postural muscles, that's what stabilizes the deep postural stuff, the rotators, multifidi, intertransversaria. That's where you get your curvature from. That's where you get, you prevent the main things for like blowing out a disc and things of that nature. So we do that exercise. Well, the second most important thing I can teach is that and Bob knows as well, is glute activation, right? That's such a prevalent condition.
Yeah, I drew a video this week.
On glute activation?
Perfect.
So doing glute clamshells in concert with the vestibulospinal stuff. Yeah, and then I'm lasering, and so I can laser the cerebellum and brainstem to upregulate that system. Or one of the other things a lot of docs are doing, I mentioned the spinal stuff, is use that line beam to laser all the way, down maybe the neck or the low back, or you can put the laser on the low back in real time as well too. So that's a good example of a great stacking modality or exercise. Now, you could, if you think of the general population, not too many people would not benefit from what Bob's doing right now. So that's a really good thing to do. Another thing for consideration as part of Bob's proprioceptive feedback and position sense, we'll get this off of him, but maybe we'll take like a rocker board or something along those lines. So another example of getting the large diameter feedback for balance, or maybe they've had maybe a B vitamin deficiency, or they're diabetic, or something along those lines, is I can have the patient do things like activate a rocker board for proprioceptive feedback and whatnot. Maybe I'm putting vibration massage over top of that, and then I'm lasering. Yeah, I'm lasering the parietal lobe.
Yeah.
And again, I'll still laser, say when he's doing this, I'll take the laser to really upregulate and do it at the same time. So again, just another example. Yeah. So I think one of the big take-home points is the first principle of whatever modalities you like to do, just think of it in practical terms on what areas of the brain are you trying to activate, both and what areas of the peripheral nervous system. And then when you put devices, again, going back to parietal lobe stuff, and Bob's going to do some stuff like that. Now, obviously, there's a little bit more bias of the left, leg going to the right parietal lobe for sensory stuff. So here I am. I'm going to vibrate and do rocker board and laser there. But again, as part of that downstream, I can just do this as a standalone and see how they do. Because then maybe I'm doing force plate or balance, like a Romberg's test or something, and I retest it. Perfect, that did it. But if I need to, I can laser maybe the lumbosacral plexus, sciatic nerve root distribution, other things that are going to supply nerves there, and see if that helps. And then again, lasering, and massaging the whole limb while he does other things of activation, whether it's seated, in this case, or standing and things of that nature. So those kind of stacking ideas are one of the best ways to improve your clinical outcomes for the patients and the practitioners alike. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
So if you want to learn more about low-level laser therapy, you can click the video link on the screen. In this video, Dr. Berry describes its benefits and how to use it and how this device actually works.
Oh, you're done.
I am.
Okay, and what else we could ask of you is if you could have any comments or notes you'd like to send to Bob, please put it in the comment section. It's very well appreciated, and we hope you have a wonderful day.